naram Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Priye Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So today we are starting the discussions on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll start with Adi Leela. There are three Leelas, Adi Leela, Madhyam and Antya Leela. And we'll start with the introduction. This introduction, as it is mentioned here, is originally delivered as 5 morning lectures on the Chaitanya Charitamrita before the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, New York City. And just imagine when it was delivered, April 10 through 14 in 1967. In 1966, July 1966, Prabhupada registered ISKCON Society. And in April 1967, he is giving lectures on Chaitanya Charitamrita. Means from the very beginning, he was giving the topmost philosophy, no matter how much they understood or, well, by mercy of Prabhupada, they understood. Well, from the very beginning, he's giving this wonderful, and devotees just put all these 5 lectures together and called it as an introduction to Chaitanya Charitamrita. And just to give you background of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are 3 books on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes or biography, you can say. Chaitanya Charitamrita, written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Chaitanya Bhagavat, written by Vrindavan Das Thakur, and Chaitanya Mangal, written by Lochan Das Thakur. Now, of all 3, Prabhupada chose Chaitanya Charitamrita to write his commentary on. He didn't write on Chaitanya Mangal or Chaitanya Bhagavat. Because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, okay, now Chaitanya Mangal is mostly deals with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes before he took sannyas. Chaitanya Bhagavat, his pastimes after he took sannyas, and or not sannyas, because after he took sannyas, he left for Jagannath Puri, so that is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Between his initiation and sannyas is Chaitanya Bhagavat. And before his initiation, the childhood pastimes is Chaitanya Mangal. Now this Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And he wrote it on the banks of Radhakund. That hut is still there, where he sat down and he wrote. And what was his, how did he get the knowledge? Raghunath Das Goswami, he was living with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarup Damodar Goswami, and all the other devotees in Jagannath Puri. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu unmanifested his pastime, so he left, then Raghunath Das Goswami got so distressed that he left Jagannath Puri and came to Vrindavan. But when he came to Vrindavan, he thought of committing suicide. Without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, there's no point in me living here. So his point was, he thought of going on top of Govardhan Hill and jumping from there and to commit suicide. Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they were there living in Vrindavan, and there were also many other devotees also. They stopped and they dissuaded him. They said, no, this is not what Vaishnavas do. First of all, we don't step on Govardhan, so that's a wrong thing you're thinking. And then we are not supposed to commit suicide. We are supposed to give the knowledge to others. And you're the only one who has seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Jagannath Puri. And you have heard them from Sarup Damodar Goswami also. So why don't you speak to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and so that he can put it down, pen them down, and everybody gets benefited. And although Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was very old, but I think it's about like 88 years old. And he was like, I cannot hear properly, I cannot write properly, and you want me to hear from him and write everything down? How is it possible? They said, no, it will happen, don't worry. You take, you pray to Madan Mohanji, pray to the deities, and they'll give you the strength. So then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami agreed. So every day he would hear, because Raghunath Das Goswami's Bhajan Kutir is at Shamkund, and his Samadhi after he left his body is at Radhakund. So between Shamkund and, I'm sorry, but his Bhajan Kutir is at Radhakund. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is that kutir where he sat down and written and listened to it and wrote down Chaitanya Charitamrita is at Shamkund. So every day they would sit down for two some hours every day, and Raghunath Das Goswami would speak and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami would write. He did write, he did mention that I cannot hear properly and my hands, they shake when I write. So Mahaprabhu gives us mercy, we can complete this scripture. And finally he did complete. So this is a little background of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And why Prabhupada chose this only? Because it has philosophical points also. Prabhupada has given plenty of philosophy. Other two books are mostly just the pastimes, just the stories. This one has philosophy also. And if Lord Chaitanya permits, we can go over Chaitanya Mangal and Chaitanya Bhagavat also. The wonderful pastimes. We love to read those. Just like Krishna's pastimes, of course, all his pastimes are very, very sweet, but especially the pastimes of his childhood are very, very sweet. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, when he was little boy as a Nimai, very sweet, but when he performed his pastimes as Lord Chaitanya after he took sannyas in Jagannath Puri, what he performed. And that was the reason he came to earth to distribute freely Krishna Prem by engaging people in chanting of the holy names. And of course, we'll study internal reasons for why he came. So all these things were fulfilled in Jagannath Puri after he took sannyas. So whenever Lord Jagannath permits, whenever we visit Jagannath Puri, so we can, the place Gambhira where he stayed for 18 years. It's a small room, very small room, and Mahaprabhu was tall. If we go to Mayapur, and we see the deities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Panchtattva, that's how tall Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. And that room is very, very small. But he lived there, of course. That room cannot be considered material, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying. First of all, it's in Jagannath Puri, and Mahaprabhu is staying. It cannot be considered material. So that room must have expanded according to Mahaprabhu's size, but we cannot see that. So anyway, those pastimes will come when Mahaprabhu moves to Jagannath Puri. So before that, Prabhupada covers lots of philosophy in this Adi Leela, especially Adi Leela, first few chapters of Adi Leela. And especially whenever a verse comes that has some hint of Mayavad, and Prabhupada would smash that philosophy. He has written purports 6, 7, 8 pages long, maybe more also. So anyway, we'll go through it. We have time, plenty. I hope we have plenty of time, but we'll go through it word by word. So, originally delivered as 5 morning lectures on the Chaitanya Charitamrita before the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, New York City, April 10 through 14, 1967. So Prabhupada said, the word Chaitanya means living force, Charita means character, and Amrita means immortal. As living entities, we can move, but a table cannot because it does not possess living force. Movement and activity may be considered signs of the living force. Indeed, it may be said that there cannot be no activity without the living force. Although the living force is present in the material condition, this condition is not Amrit or immortal. The words Chaitanya Charitamrita then may be translated as, if we go with just a word-to-word translation, the character of the living force in immortality. So Chaitanya means living force. Anything that is Chaitan means living. So living, and then Charita means character, and Amrita means immortal. The character of the living force in immortality. But how is this living force displayed immortally? It's not displayed by man or any other creature in this material universe, for none of us are immortal in these bodies. We possess the living force, we perform activities, and we are immortal by our nature and constitution. But the material condition into which we have been put does not allow our immortality to be displayed. It is stated in the Katha Upanishad that eternality and the living force are characteristics of both ourselves and God. Although this is true in that both God and ourselves are immortal living beings, there is difference. As living entities, we perform many activities, but we have a tendency to fall down into material nature. God has no such tendency. Being all-powerful, he never comes under the control of material nature. Indeed, material nature is but one display of his inconceivable energies. So, we both are immortal, God and us, but our bodies are mortal. We have material body. Krishna doesn't, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't. But even though we are immortal, God is immortal, but we are dependent on God. We are not as independent as God is. And we have a tendency to fall down, because that's why we call Tatastha Shakti. God doesn't come under his Maya energy. We do come under his Maya energy. An analogy will help us understand the distinction between ourselves and God. From the ground, we may see only clouds in the sky. But if we fly above the clouds, we can see the sun shining. From the sky, skyscrapers and cities seem very thin. Similarly, from God's position, this entire material creation is insignificant. The living entity is also insignificant, and its tendency to come down from the heights where everything can be seen in perspective. So, we all are very, very insignificant. All the skyscrapers we have built, cities we have built, we think they are very great. Delhi, Mumbai, New York, LA, Moscow, we think, oh, they are great, big cities, huge cities. But from God's perspective, Krishna's perspective, they're insignificant. And similarly, the living entity who has built all this, it's insignificant also. The Supreme Lord is not subject to falling down into illusion, Maya, any more than the sun is subject to falling beneath the clouds. Impersonalist philosophers, Mayavadis, maintain that because we fall under the control of Maya, when we come into this material world, God must also fall under Maya's control. This is the fallacy of the philosophy. So God never comes under Maya's control. Maya is under God's control. He is the complete Ishvara, controller, everything. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should therefore not be considered one of us. He is Krishna himself, the supreme living entity. And as such, he never comes under the cloud of Maya. Never. That's why he's called Chaitanya. He is living, always living. Of course, there's more meaning to that. But even just from this aspect, if we understand, he never comes under the control of Maya. He's Krishna himself. Krishna, his expansions, and even his higher devotees never fall into the clutches of illusion. Lord Chaitanya came to earth simply to preach Krishna Bhakti, love of Krishna. In other words, he is Lord Krishna himself, teaching the living entities the proper way to approach Krishna. He's like a teacher who, seeing a student doing poorly, takes up a pencil and writes, saying, do it like this, A, B, C. From this, one should not foolishly think that the teacher is learning his ABCs. Similarly, although Lord Chaitanya appears in the guise of a devotee, we should not foolishly think that he is an ordinary human being. We should always remember the Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, teaching us how to become Krishna conscious, and we must study him in that light. So he is not an ordinary person. Although he's singing and dancing just like an ordinary madman, an ordinary devotee, and motivating us, inspiring us, telling us to dance and chant like this, chant the holy names of Krishna. But he is Krishna himself. He came in the form of a devotee of Krishna, in the guise of a devotee. He is also called Channa Avatar, hidden incarnation. But why he had to come in the form of a devotee, first of all, and as a hidden incarnation? Prabhupada explains it. In Bhagavad Gita 1866, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Pariteja, give up all your nonsense and surrender unto me. I'll protect you. We say, oh, surrender? But I have so many responsibilities. And Maya illusion says to us, don't do it or you'll be out of my clutches. Just stay in my clutches and I'll kick you. That's proper way of preaching. It's a fact that we are constantly being kicked by Maya, just as a male ass is kicked in the face by the she-ass when he comes for sex. Similarly, cats and dogs are always fighting and whining when they have sex. Even an elephant in the jungle is caught by the use of a trained she-elephant who leads him into a pit. We should learn by observing these tricks of nature. So Maya has many ways to entrap us, and her strongest shackle is a female. Of course, for female, the strongest shackle is a male. Of course, in actuality, we are neither male nor female, for these designations refer only to the outer dress of the body. We are all actually Krishna's servants, but in conditioned life, we are shackled by iron chains in the form of beautiful women. Thus, every male is bound by sex, and therefore one who wishes to gain liberation from the material clutches must first learn to control the sex urge. Unrestricted sex puts one fully in the clutches of Maya or illusion. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu officially renounced this Maya at the age of 24, although his wife was 16 and his mother 70. And he was the only male in the family. Although he was a Brahmin and was not rich, he took sannyas, the renounced order of life, and thus extricated himself from family entanglement, not caring for the Maya of wife and mother. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is Supreme Lord, and although his wife Vishnupriya, she was 16 at that time when he took sannyas. and mother was 70. And mother passed away after a few years, but Vishnu Priya lived for a long time in separation from the Lord. And Mother Vishnu Priya, she lived in Navadvip in separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because this pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to teach how to live in separation. In Krishna's pastimes, we learned how gopis lived in separation and how Krishna lived in separation from the gopis. But we just learned. Here, all the devotees, they teach us how to live in separation. And Vishnu Priya, how she was living, that every day she would chant the rounds on Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And for every one round, she would take a grain of rice. Next round count and the grain of rice. And end of the day, how many grains of rice is there? That she would cook and eat. That's it. Can we imagine eating only 16 grains of rice every day? But of course, she was chanting much more than that. But the point is, this and that's all she ate in separation. So although Prabhupada didn't cover this, so why Krishna came as a devotee in form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, surrender unto me. And people in general in Kali Yuga, we like to question everything, especially when it comes to our comfort level. Why surrender? Why should I surrender? So Krishna gave his instructions as surrendered. Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us how to surrender to Krishna. And he came in the form of a devotee of Krishna, so we understand how a devotee surrenders unto Krishna. If he had come as God, then we would have said, no, God does different things. We cannot follow God. But that's why he came as devotee. Okay, do what a devotee does. But at the same time, he's God. He's not like us. If we wish to become fully Krishna conscious, we have to give up the shackles of Maya. Or if we remain with Maya, we should live in such a way that we will not be subject to illusion, as did the many householders among Lord Chaitanya's closest devotees. They were householders, and they showed how to live as a householder and still live the life of a devotee. With his householders in the renounced order, however, Lord Chaitanya was very strict. He even banished Junior Haridas, an important Kirtan leader, for glancing lustfully at a young woman. The Lord told him, you're living with me in the renounced order, and yet you're looking at a woman with lust. Other devotees of the Lord appealed to him to forgive Haridas, but he replied, all of you can forgive him and live with him. I shall live alone. So he was very strict in these cases. But with his householder devotees, he was very lenient because they were in that ashram. On the other hand, when the Lord learned that the wife of one of his householder devotees was pregnant, he asked that the baby be given a certain auspicious name. So while the Lord approved of householders having regulated sex, he was like a thunderbolt with those in the renounced order who tried to cheat by the method known as drinking water underwater while bathing on a fast day. So if we say we are fasting Nirjala Ekadashi, but when we are taking shower, we drink some water, or claiming an excuse, oh, I was underwater. No. In other words, he tolerated no hypocrisy among his followers. So he set certain standards. He followed them, and he expected his devotees to follow. according to their Varna and ashram. From the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we learn how Lord Chaitanya taught people to break the shackles of Maya and become immortal. Thus, as mentioned above, the title may be properly translated as the character of the living force in immortality. The supreme living force is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is also the supreme entity. There are innumerable living entities, and all of them are individuals. This is very easy to understand. We are all individual in our thoughts and desires, and the Supreme Lord is also an individual person. He is different, though, in that he is a leader, the one whom no one can excel, means no one can go beyond him. Among the minute living entities, one being can excel another in one capacity or another. Like each of these living entities, the Lord is an individual, but he is different in that he is a supreme individual. God is also infallible, and thus in Bhagavad Gita he is addressed as Achyuta, which means he who never falls down. This name is appropriate because in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna falls into illusion, but Krishna does not. Krishna himself reveals his infallibility when he says to Arjuna, when I appear in this world, I do so by my own internal potency. So he appears in his own internal potency. He is always the Supreme Lord, he is Achyuta, but we fall down. We have fallen down. Thus, we should not think that Krishna is overpowered by the material potency when he is in the material world. Neither Krishna nor his incarnations ever come under the control of material nature. So neither Krishna nor any of his incarnations ever come under the control of material nature. They perform their pastimes in a different way, and we can misinterpret their pastimes without understanding. So that's why we need a guru to go to, just like Lord Ram killing Bali. Until we know the details, intricacies of those pastimes, we'll misunderstand Lord Ram's killing of Bali. Or people can question so many things. We have to know the details. Even Krishna's pastimes are definitely completely misunderstood. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he came as a devotee, his pastimes are very, very sweet. But some of his pastimes we can misinterpret, not understanding what is he doing. So that's why we have to take shelter of a guru who can explain. So neither Krishna nor his incarnations ever come under the control of material nature. They're totally free. Indeed, in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has a godly nature is actually defined as one who's not affected by the modes of material nature, although in material nature. So even the devotees, fully surrendered devotees, they also don't come under the control of material nature. If even a devotee can attain this freedom, then what to speak of the Supreme Lord? He's definitely beyond this material world. The real question is, how can we remain unpolluted by material contamination while in the material world? Srila Rupa Goswami explains that we can remain uncontaminated while in the world if we simply make it our ambition to serve Krishna. So this is our protection, this is our vaccination, immunization, whatever we want to call it. If we simply make it our ambition to serve Krishna, then we remain purified or uncontaminated. One may then just justifiably ask, how can I serve? It's not simply a matter of meditation, which is just an activity of the mind, but of performing practical work for Krishna. In such work, we should leave no resource unused. Whatever is there, whatever we have, should be used for Krishna. We can use everything, typewriters, automobiles, airplanes, missiles, of course. We don't have missiles, to shoot at anybody. But the point is, we can use everything. If we simply speak to people about Krishna consciousness, we are also rendering service. If our mind, senses, speech, money, and energies are thus engaged in the service of Krishna, then we are no longer in material nature. By virtue of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, we transcend the platform of material nature. It's a fact that Krishna, his expansions, and his devotees, that is, those who work for him, are not in material nature, although people with the poor fund of knowledge think that they are. So Krishna, his expansions, and his devotees, that is, those who work for him, are not in material nature. So big statement. So as long as we are serving Krishna, we are not in Maya. So that's what it is. No? Either we are in Krishna or Krishna service, or we are in Maya. We are serving Krishna or we are serving Maya. That's up to us now. But who do we want to serve? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed how to serve Krishna and how many benefits are there. The Chaitanya Charitamrita teaches that the spirit soul is immortal and that our activities in the spiritual world are also immortal. The Mayavadis, who hold the view that the absolute is impersonal and formless, contend that a realized soul has no need to talk. This is what Mayavadis think. The realized soul has no need to talk. Talking is material. But the Vaishnavas, devotees of Krishna, contend that when one reaches a stage of realization, he really begins to talk. Actually, before we are realized, whatever we talk is nonsense. Previously, we only talked of nonsense, the Vaishnava says. Now let us begin our real talks of Krishna. See the difference and how big a difference in opinion is. And Mayavadis, if you speak to them and they come up with all these arguments, oh, when we realize, you just go silent and meditate, no need to talk. It sounds very good. Sounds very, very holistic. What it is, oh, it must be very powerful. But the Vaishnavas, on the other hand, when you realized, talk. Tell people more about Krishna. That is the real talk, because the real use of the sense of talk is to serve the owner of that sense. So Mayavadis cannot understand this. In support of the view, the Vaishnavas, that the self-realized, Mayavadis, the self-realized remains silent. The Mayavadis are fond of using the example of the water pot, maintaining that when a pot is not filled with water, it makes a sound. But when it is filled, it makes no sound. That's what it's in, Thotha Chana Bhaje Gana. If the pot is empty, it makes sound. But when it is filled with water, no more sound. That's what the Mayavadis argue. The Prabhupada says, but are we water pots? How can we be compared to them? A good analogy utilizes as many similarities between two objects as possible. A water pot is not an active living force, but we are. Ever silent meditation may be adequate for a water pot, but not for us. We always have this tendency to talk. That's what Rupa Goswami said, watch your wakam. First instruction is control this urge to speak, because we have this urge to speak. So even when we are meditating, we have the urge to speak. So the real control is when we use it for Krishna service. Indeed, when a devotee realizes how much he has to say about Krishna, 24 hours in a day are not sufficient. It's a fool who is celebrated as long as he does not speak. For when he breaks his silence, his lack of knowledge is exposed. So it's a fool who is celebrated. Oh, he's a Moni Baba and this or that. But Prabhupada was heavy. For when he breaks his silence, his lack of knowledge is exposed. So better it's good he doesn't speak. The Chaitanya Charitamrita shows that there are many wonderful things to discover by glorifying the Supreme. In the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, I offer my respects to my spiritual masters. He used the plural here to indicate the disciplic succession. He offers obeisances not to his spiritual master alone, but to the whole parampara, the chain of disciplic succession, beginning with Lord Krishna himself. Thus, the author addresses the Guru in the plural to show the highest respect for all his predecessor spiritual masters. After offering obeisances to the disciplic succession, the author pays obeisances to all other devotees, to the Lord himself, to his incarnations, to the expansions of Godhead, and to manifestation of Krishna's internal energy. So that we'll go through. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sometimes called Krishna Chaitanya, is the embodiment of all of these. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name from birth was Nimai, Gaurchandar, Vishwambhar. But when he took sannyas, and he was given this name, Krishna Chaitanya, by his sannyas guru, Keshav Bharti. Actually, he took sannyas from Mayavadi Sampradaya. Because at that time, Vaishnav sannyas was not in very much vogue. Not too many people know about it. And people really respected Mayavadi sannyasis. So Mahaprabhu went to Keshav Bharti, and this is also a very funny story. He told Keshav Bharti that in my dream, Krishna came and Krishna gave me this mantra for sannyas. And he spoke that mantra in Keshav Bharti's ear. And Keshav Bharti said, yes, it's very good mantra. So I'll give you this mantra. But actually looking at it, Mahaprabhu first initiated him in that sannyas mantra because he spoke in his ear. And then he got the mantra back from Keshav Bharti. And then secondly, he himself inspired to Keshav Bharti to give him the name Krishna Chaitanya. in Mayavadi sannyas process, so Bharti is a title, Keshav Bharti. So there are many sannyasis, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Mahaprabhu meets him in Jagannath Puri, and then many other. I don't know all of them. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that Bharti Sampradaya you took sannyas from, it's not very, very high order. It's lower order of sannyasis. But Mahaprabhu chose Keshav Bharti. And then he asked for this name as Krishna Chaitanya. Actually, it means one who is conscious or living in service of Krishna. But this Krishna Chaitanya, actually Chaitanya in Mayavadi Sampradaya, the name is given to not to sannyasis, but to brahmacharis or to the servants. And Mahaprabhu, through this name, also wanted to show to the world the mood of a devotee to always remain a servant. Many reasons why he took this name, Krishna Chaitanya. as a sannyas name. And then why Mahaprabhu? Everything has some logic behind it. We call each other Prabhus, right? That you are my master. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the master of all, yes. He is the Supreme Lord, yes. But there's another internal meaning that he revealed. He is called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only after he took sannyas and moved to Jagannath Puri. Before that, he was Nimai and Vishwambar and Goshankar. So means, this here Mahaprabhu means one Prabhu who is in Mahabhav. Mahabhav of Srimati Radharani. That's why it's called Mahaprabhu. So we don't call anybody and everybody Mahaprabhu. Prabhu is okay, but not Mahaprabhu. That is for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was in Mahabhav of Srimati Radharani. And he manifested that after taking sannyas and after moving to Jagannath Puri. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sometimes called Krishna Chaitanya, is the embodiment of all of these. He is God, his Guru, his devotee, incarnation, internal energy, and expansion of God. As his associate Nityananda, he is the first expansion of God. As Advaita, he is an incarnation. As Gadadhar, he is internal potency. And as Srivas, he is a marginal living entity in the role of a devotee. Srivas Thakur is Narad Muni himself. Gadadhar is Srimati Radharani. Radharani took the form of Gadadhar Pandit to be in this pastime with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with Krishna. Krishna took the mood of Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. But Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani herself. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, so Radharani could not be with him in a female form. So he came down as male form, Gadadhar. Thus, Krishna should not be thought of as being alone, but should be considered as eternally existing with all his manifestations, as described by Ramanujacharya. In the Vishishta Advaita philosophy, God's energies, expansions, and incarnations are considered to be oneness in diversity. In other words, God is not separate from all of these. Everything together is God, but everything is not God at the same time. And then Prabhupada says, actually the Chaitanya Charitamrita is not intended for the novice or for the neophytes, for the newcomers. For it's a postgraduate study of spiritual knowledge. Postgraduate. Ideally, one begins with the Bhagavad Gita and advances through Srimad Bhagavatam to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So by Prabhupada's mercy, we have completed Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. I don't know how much I understood that, but still we went through. And then coming to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Although all these great scriptures are not on the same absolute level, for the sake of comparative study, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is considered to be on the highest platform. Every verse in it is perfectly composed. That is Chaitanya Charitamrita. So just imagine how fortunate we are that because of Prabhupada's mercy and hard work, we can read the translation, read the commentaries, and try to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And the philosophy also. Philosophy is also given, plenty of philosophy. So I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we'll be going through all the 6 volumes and separately, or we'll be reading the condensed book?
6 volumes separately. I thought it was 9 books.
Yeah. 6 or 9?
I was told 9, but I read through Veda base, so I don't know.
I think because I have purchased this Chaitanya Charitamrita, so there are only 6 volumes.
Maybe they have compressed it, condensed it, but we'll go through everything, every verse.
Now, just
There are 9 volumes, Prabhuji.
there are 9.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I thought. It had
There
9
are 6
books.
volumes of Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita.
Not Leelamrita, Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah, Leelamrita has got 6 volumes. Maybe Prabhuji is confused with that.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Charitamrita, Chaitanya Charitamrita has 9 volumes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So, thank you all. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Jai
Thank
Shri
you,
Ram.
Prabhuji.